Hey y'all, welcome back. Today we're checking out why Brits understate just a bit and Americans exaggerate everything.
Picture this. You're in a battle with your troops outnumbered 8-1 on all sides. You've got to now communicate the severity of the situation to the general so he knows how to help.
Oh.
What do you say?
I would say, bro, get the over here with your fucking guns and and help us out, bro. USA, USA.
If you're a British man named Tom Brodie and you're fighting in the Korean War, you say what comes most naturally to you. Things are a bit sticky, sir. I.e., in classic British understatement, help. Unfortunately, the general in charge of the United Nations Joint Command was American, and that meant that he took this to mean we've generally got this under control even if things are going a little bit wrong. Because to an American, if you need help, you'd scream it from the rooftops and say something like, all hell is breaking loose. A classic example of American overstatement because hell itself was not actually breaking loose. This incident, part of the Battle of the Imjin River, is just one example of the contrast between British understatement and American exaggeration.
The what? Battle of Imjin River. The Battle of Imjin River, also known as the Battle of... Okay, I can't read it. The Battle of Imjin River, also known as the Battle of Sol Mare, or Battle of Gloucester Hill in South Korea, or Battle of... a Chinese word. Troops from the Chinese People's Volunteer Army attacked the United Nations Command positions in the lower Imjin River in an attempt to achieve a breakthrough and recapture the South Korean capital, Seoul. The attack was part of the Chinese Spring Offensive, the aim of which was to create blah 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 blah. Okay. I don't need to read all this. We get the picture.
Example of the contrast between British understatement and American exaggeration. And while the soldiers were credited with saving Seoul, the South Korean capital, more than 500 of them were captured because the American general didn't send in reinforcements or instruct them to withdraw, as he didn't realize the true severity of the situation. In this video, we're going to explore these two different communication styles and some of the most notorious examples of them and what purpose they serve in each culture.
This is very interesting. In another Girl Gone London video, hey Caitlin, be sure to go to Girl Gone London and like and subscribe. But in another Girl Gone London video, she explained how America is a low context society and Britain is a high context society. Is that it? Context. I always get it wrong. It's not context. I think it's contextual. I don't remember exactly what word she used. They're kind of the same word, though, aren't they? But yeah, why do Brits understate and Americans exaggerate? Why do we exaggerate? I don't know why. Maybe it's like a fish story thing. Like, we exaggerate things because it makes a better story, maybe?
Let's start by quickly defining what we mean by understatement and exaggeration or hyperbole.
Okay.
Understatement is a statement that describes something in a way that makes it seem less important, serious, or bad than it really is. Okay. Exaggeration, on the other hand, is of course the opposite. It's the act of making something more important than it really is by overstating or distorting fact.
That was the most amazing sneeze. See what I did?
By overstating or distorting facts. You are emphasizing or magnifying certain qualities to the point that they actually become untrue. I asked my audience for some classic examples of British understatement, and some great ones were shared, including an exchange between the Earl of Uxbridge and the Duke of Wellington during the Battle of Waterloo in 1815. The Earl's leg needed to be amputated after being hit by a cannon, and he said, "By God, sir, I've lost my leg." To which the Duke of Wellington reportedly replied, "By God, sir, so you have." Another more recent one happened in 1982 when pilot Eric Moody was in charge of a British Airways flight that lost all 4 of its engines. He managed to land safely, spoiler alert, but before doing so spoke to the passengers and he said, "We have a small problem. All 4 engines have stopped. We are doing our damnedest to get them going again. I trust you are not in too much distress."
Whoa.
There's also the Admiral in 1916, after experiencing some of his ships exploding, who's quoted as saying, "There seems to be something wrong with our ships." You think?
You would think that during a battle, during war, that the understatements would fall away and that they would say, like the military would have some sort of number scale Like, how bad is it from 1 to 10? It's an 8, sir. Okay, that's pretty bad. Like something more quantitative, right? Polite. During war, especially.
Now, as for American hyperbole, it comes up a lot in everyday conversation and in just normal phrases and how we express ourselves. Even our tendency to describe lots of things as amazing or awesome comes across as exaggeration. And then you have phrases like the best thing since sliced bread, the greatest movie of all time, or you might say, if I don't get coffee right now, I'm literally going to die.
Yeah, people say literally when it's not literally. I don't think they know what, I literally don't think they know what literally means. I literally think they literally don't know what literally means. Literally.
The greatest movie of all time. Or you might say, if I don't get coffee right now, I'm literally going to die.
Coffee. Be sure to get your official JJLA Reacts coffee mug, y'all. Coffee. Coffee.
Best thing since sliced bread. The greatest movie of all time. Or you might say, if I don't get coffee right now, I'm literally going to die. If it's hot outside, a Brit might say, it's a bit warm outside, don't you think? Whereas an American would probably say something along the lines of, oh my god, it's hotter than the surface of the sun out there. But culturally, where does this come from? Why do we do this? Let's talk British understatement first, because it is so popularly used and the default communication style in the UK that it's listed as a Wikipedia article on its own, referring to it as a traditional aspect of British culture. Now, for Brits, understatement serves 5 main purposes. Number 1, modesty. Within British culture, humility is seen as a positive characteristic to have. Not being too big for your britches is seen as the correct and moral way to be, and boasting or appearing like you have no self-restraint is not a good look. Whether it's a celebrity or politician or any other public figure, the second you appear not to be able to laugh at yourself or you're believing too much in your own hype, as the kids would say, the British public likes to take you down a notch because of the emphasis on modesty. And I don't mean modesty when it comes to like what you wear, but modesty in your personality. Understatement helps in this way because you avoid appearing boastful or overly proud or extreme. Understatement can also be used in British culture in a humorous way. It's just funny. It helps create irony, and downplaying the significance of something can be a way of joking with others. I had a weird phase in college where my friends and I would visit some of the most exciting looking attractions around the world when we would travel, and we would take pictures in front of them looking as bored as humanly possible. There's something about not acknowledging how great something is directly or understating its importance to you or to the world that just appeals to a British sense of humor. Another thing to avoid in British culture is confrontation. Being direct and confrontational culturally is not seen as a good thing. It's considered more polite to avoid confrontation, to smooth things over, to sort of talk about things indirectly. And understatement helps people do that. It can soften potentially critical statements and help smooth those social interactions and help you come across as not too overbearing. Again, keep these characteristics in mind because culturally, America prioritizes different characteristics as positive and has different views on this topic. Now, the 4th way that understatement helps in the UK is it helps avoid emotions. Emotional reserve is also something to be prized in the UK. Being overly emotional or intense is not a traditionally British characteristic, and it can be seen as being too dramatic and therefore almost not trustworthy. It's that stiff upper lip mentality, and if you're going around saying, I just love this lasagna, don't you think it's amazing? You're going to come across as too enthusiastic and too in love with your lasagna. And of course, the most popular cultural phrase from the war in the UK that the whole world seems to have caught on to now is keep calm and carry on. This also ties into the previous point, but understatement helps display an air of stability, which is a positive personality trait and generally looked upon as a good thing in the UK. And all of these things seem like great things, so why would another culture do it differently? Why are Americans going around saying the pizza they had was the best pizza in the whole world when it probably wasn't even top 10 of the pizzas you had in the last year? But understatement doesn't fit into American culture in the same way it fits into British culture. Exaggeration does. And here's why. Firstly, you'll remember from our past communication videos that America does not value indirect communication. America values direct, in-your-face communication. And while exaggeration and hyperbole swing in the complete opposite direction to understatement, and you could argue they're not exactly direct because they're not even true because hell is not literally letting loose, It's more direct than understatement. And while it may lead to confrontation, American culture is less afraid of confrontation than British culture if we're making a generalization. But there are other ways that exaggeration actually fits well into American culture. In contrast to British culture, I feel like I've said culture way too many times in this video, enthusiasm and being extremely passionate about something are considered positive traits in America. We love people who love things. We love to love things, and showing that excitement comes across in a more genuine way in the US than it does in the UK. Hyperbole helps convey that expressiveness and makes you more likable in the US, not less. It's also considered an entertaining way to speak. It makes things more interesting to American ears.
Good story.
And that's highly valued in American society.
Yeah, it's true. We love to love things. We love to watch people love things. And yeah, exaggeration makes a better story. I remember when I first learned about the power of the word amazing in the music industry, or entertainment industry in general. I was working with a producer named Rick Beato, who also has, he's a YouTube guy now. Be sure to check out his page if you're into music stuff. Rick Beato. He's an old friend, and I was his assistant engineer for some sessions over the course of, a few years. And I remember we had this conversation about the word amazing. He said, basically, whenever you want to compliment a piece of artwork or, music, something that someone's done, saying that's amazing. Just saying that is specific enough, but vague enough for the other person to accept it. So even if something's not great, if you say that was amazing, it still comes across as genuine. I guess he taught me how to lie.
Number 2, emotionally, openness is also a trait of American culture. We're not taught to filter our emotions, but rather to tell them everyone we know who definitely does not care. And hyperbole does help us to express this emotion. It's charged with emotion, it's filled with drama, and as a culture, we don't shy away from that. From a consumer and marketing perspective, American consumerism is also filled with examples of hyperbole that we're used to seeing. This is the world famous vacuum cleaner. This is the world's best Mexican restaurant, the #1 hospital. Americans as a culture are far more willing to be sold to than Brits, and being a good salesperson is actually seen as a quality trait, as long as you're not being too seedy. And so, American exaggeration ties into our love of the sale and of selling, both products and, as we'll get to in the next point, our own personalities. Number 4, self-promotion. Downplaying your achievements is not seen as a positive trait in the US like it is in the UK. In the US, understatement about yourself says, I lack confidence, and makes people trust you less. Again, this is in total contrast to life across the pond and how British culture and communication works.
Y'all, I hate promoting myself. I hate it. It makes me feel gross. And whenever I try to be self-deprecating, people think I'm depressed, but I'm not. I don't see self-promotion as a virtue, really. When other people do it, I think it's fine, but it feels gross to me. I don't know why. Maybe it's a Gen X thing. I'm Gen X.
Americans believe in sharing the best of yourself at all times and emphasizing our own opinions and uniqueness. And while we do have the concept of bragging in the US, there is a line as to where it becomes too much. It's much further down the spectrum than in the UK. So hyperbole helps us get this across. We are overstating rather than understating. And finally, optimism. There's something optimistic about hyperbole, even if you're not saying something openly positive. It deals in the extraordinary rather than the ordinary. And while British life tends to be all about the beauty in the ordinary and the subtle art of the understatement, American life is all about the extremes, and this concept that we should focus on the tall tales and the crazy stories and this sort of wonder and imagination that comes along with hyperbole. And the beauty of it all is that neither is wrong. And that's what I love about these cultural deep dives. Some things are more objective. We can compare those things about the UK and the USA and decide who is better. But when it comes to communication, each culture does what works within their own communication style. If you've got any examples of your own, as always, I'd love to hear them in the comments below. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Y'all be sure to go to Girl Gone London and like and subscribe. We do exaggerate. Oh, that was the greatest burp, wasn't it? It was amazing. This is the best coffee I've ever had. This is the world's greatest coffee. Just thinking about all the phrases that we have, like, oh, you're the best. You're the greatest. It's very true. Yeah. Modesty. I do value modesty. The humor with a U. 2 U's. Understatements are very funny. Are exaggerations funny? Exaggerations can be funny, but it's a whole different kind of funny, right? Helps avoid confrontation. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I don't think Americans care about I mean, I can't say that. I could see how Americans are less avoidant of confrontation, for sure. Keep calm and carry on, yes, from the World War II. It does create an air of stability. So exaggeration is more direct than an understatement. Okay. Exaggeration equals enthusiasm. Okay, yes. Americans are more agreeable to salespeople. Is that true? We're definitely more capitalistic. Capitalistic. That's a word. And yeah, being able to chat somebody up and butter up people is a virtue. Or it's considered a virtue in America. I could see how in Britain how it would be like, stop. I know you're just trying to sell me stuff. Okay, yeah. Yeah. Self-promotion. Yeah. It's so hard to do because I don't respect it. Self-promotion feels gross. I think I've said it already a few times. Self-promotion's the worst. Optimism. This is so crazy. Because this hits at the root about the differences in the cultures. It's amazing that we speak the same language, really. Y'all, I love comparing Britain and America. It's like an alternate universe. It's so interesting. Different ways of communicating, different music, different art. I guess the stereotype is that the British are like uptight and proper, even though I know that's not the case for all Brits. And Americans are like wild and trashy, you know? We're the wild and trashy ones. Dirty, gross. I gotta say, I'm kind of proud of being the trashy one. You know? Well, y'all, if you made it this far in the video, be sure to like and subscribe. I'd like to thank my patrons on Patreon, my Buy Me a Coffee folks. Thank y'all for watching this with me, and I'll see you next time. USA! Later.